Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be discussing. Hold on. Let me move this out of the way. Just another right corner. Okay. There's going to be a lot of amateurism in this video. It's really my first sort of reaction video. Let's call it that. I'm going to be responding to my favorite non-governmental organization, the opposition funded and controlled USA-controlled NGO, the Syrian Emergency Task Force. I'm going to be listening to this Syrian exile and dissident, Mr. Omar, tell me why U.S. sanctions on Syria, labeled the Caesar Law, after alleged photos came out from a defector that supposedly worked in one of Assad's prisons and had numerous photos of torture inside, which justifies USA sanctions on Syria. Already dubious origins of these alleged photos of torture in Syria, because hey, if anyone's never tortured anyone and photos have never come out of said torture, it's the United States, of course. They've never had any scandal or incident like that. Let's go to Google. This wasn't too long ago, right? Abu Ghraib torture and prisoner abuse. Wow. Seems like there's a lot of photos of United States security forces and soldiers torturing Arabs, just like the Arabs in Syria being tortured. It seems like the United States care a lot about the human rights and civil liberties of Arabs, as we saw with the ongoing Iraq war and the ongoing occupation of the country. That's pretty damning shit right here. This is pretty disgusting. I hope YouTube doesn't flag me. Naked abuse, rape, all done by the USA. So if anyone has the moral authority to enact these sanctions on the Assad government and the Syrian country as a whole, the Syrian people, it's the United States State Department. And if anyone is really pro-human rights and human dignity, it's Donald Trump, who signed up on these sanctions in 2019. So anyways, let's get to the video. It's a very smug
هل
smile
سيؤدي
there.
قانون قيصر إلى إسقاط النظام
Will
السوري؟
Caesar's law lead to the fall of Syrian regime?
لا. قانون قيصر لا.
No. So why are you doing? I feel like you're just kind of why should we even listen to you if this is not going to lead to the fall of the Assad regime? Why are you doing these sanctions? Like, what the fuck's the point? I feel like you just kind of, lost your argument by yourself. As you can see right here, I dislike this video. I think I had a comment earlier that they removed. Anyways,
لحاله ما بيؤدي إلى
it
إسقاط
won't.
النظام
Okay.
السوري. فقط مع عمل جماعي مع المجتمع الدولي، الناشطين السوريين داخل وبرا
By the way,
مع المجتمع
I
الدولي.
just want to say, anytime, as we see right here, he mentions the international community in quotes. Who does Mr. Omar mean when he says the international community? I saw a funny meme, highlighting this phenomenon anytime fucking Western sources talk about, sorry, there's just torture photos on right now, I'll get rid of that, the so-called international community. This is whom they mean, the international community, in blue right here. I'll pull up bigger screen. The United States, EU, Australia, Japan, South Korea, G7 allies, these blue countries. This is who Mr. Omar means by the international community in quotes. Yeah, and in case you're wondering, it does look like a sizable amount of the world, but let's crunch the numbers. The United States, EU, Australia, Japan, South Korea, the G7 countries, that accounts for just 7% of the population. This excludes India, China, two of the most populous countries in the world, Australia, very populous, the entire Middle East and Africa, billions of people in there, all of Latin America, close to 1 billion people. Just they're not in this international community. So if 7%, coincidentally, these countries, save for maybe South Korea, but Japan certainly, and all of Europe and America are the post-colonial empires. Coincidentally, now they deserve to lead again, huh? You know, history has a way of staying the same, unfortunately. That's the leaders in whom Mr. Omar trusts to sanction his country. This man is Syrian, allegedly. I believe him, but he wants his former masters, his country's former masters in Europe, France, now the United States, to sanction his country. So it's kind of a real Uncle Tom or porch N-word, as we call black people who kind of cop to white superiority. Anyways.
مع الدولة الناشطين السوريين داخل وبرا البلد وأي مساعدة نقدر نحصلها سوا بعمل فقط هدفه إسقاط نظام نقدر سقط نظام
We can let
السوري.
the Syrian regime fall.
عمل كبير.
The law is a big source of hope.
قانون قيصر.
I don't think most Syrians believe this, especially ones living inside the country. I've gotten to know several Syrians during my time online who live in Aleppo, Halep, Latakia, all over the government-held area, which is at present most of the country. Inshallah, it'll be all of it soon. And they tell me the situation, though it's not as bad as it was in, say, 2015, throughout the war is still dire, and the sanctions are having a giant impact, as well as the U.S. occupation. There's limited electricity in some of the big cities. Aleppo, even worse in the countryside. The U.S. is taking its oil in the east, taking economic resources with its allies in the SDF, predominantly Kurd force. It's not part of the sanctions, but it might as well be. It's just the U.S. fucking up the country. And these sanctions are doing just that, and I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you why this man is either ignorant or lying and an opportunist. I don't know. I tend to believe the latter of what I've seen from some of his work at the SETF and opposition NGOs. Let's continue.
قانون راح يتطبق بشكل تدريجي. 17 حزيران هو الشيء المهم بالنسبة لنا اليوم. 17 حزيران شو راح يصير؟ ب 17 حزيران 2020 راح يتم الإعلان عن أول حزمة عقوبات. أول حزمة عقوبات. يعني في حزمة عقوبات تاني جاية. هذا الشيء.
Oh, more sanctions. That's great. Yeah, that is
يعني
good.
شيء
Okay.
مهم جدا. إنه أول حزمة جاي 17 شهر، يعني الباب لسه مفتوح العقوبات.
The door is open for more
قانون
sanctions.
مدته 10 سنوات.
It's a lot, 10 years long. So I mean, it just started in 2020. It's 2023. We got a lot of sanctions. More coming. He's given a preview. This is just the beginning, folks, for Syria, United States sanctions. Really depressing shit. He seems to be pretty happy about it.
يلي عم يساعدوا النظام بشار الأسد اليوم بيتم معاقبته.
Will be punished. Okay.
واللي راح يساعدوا بشار الأسد خلال 10 سنوات القادمة راح يتم
More
معاقبته.
people will be punished. Good.
هسه في شيء أحسن من هيك بكتير.
Even better.
القانون 10 سنوات.
Oh, it could be extended. That's fantastic. More good news. It's 10 years, but it can even be extended. Okay.
تمديده أسهل من صناعته من البداية.
Extending it is easier than creating it. So the hard part's already done.
قبل 10 سنوات نقدر نمد القانون.
If the regime doesn't fall in the next 10 years, we can keep extending the sanctions. They're about to turn into the motherfucking 21st century version of Cuba. I'm sorry, Syrians, but it looks like that's what's on the way. God damn it, that sucks. I'm sorry, Syrians. You've already suffered enough. And the USA is just intent, because it's lost its proxy war, of course, to make your lives living hell. Because it's petty. It wants to just strangle you. Like it does most of the world, unfortunately.
قانون شو هدف قانون قيصر؟ ليش تعب ونشغل على قانون قيصر؟
I can answer this question before Mr. Omar does. The goal of the Caesar's Law, the sanctions, there's a lot at play here. Don't listen to him. Don't listen to NGOs. Don't listen to anyone, most people at the UN. Don't listen to any like anti-Assad media, all Western media essentially. They're lying about the true intentions of the sanctions, because whether they're lying or just ignorant and genuinely believe in their heart of hearts the USA has the best interest of the Syrian civilians in mind and thinks these sanctions are in the best interest of Syrian civilians, and they're intended to help people. I don't know why they believe that, given the demonstrable suffering it's caused in places like Cuba, Iran, Iraq in the 90s especially. And just U.S. government officials have fucking mentioned it, like Madeleine Albright, like they've all, maybe behind closed doors as leaked, or even sometimes in the open, said the goal of these sanctions are to harm the civilian population of this country in hopes that they get so devastated economically, lacking resources, that they rise up and overthrow the government. This is what they officially said during the 1990 sanctions. In Iraq, they wanted the public to get so fucking, to suffer so much, they rise up and overthrow Saddam for them. It didn't work, and the U.S. eventually came in, although it did weaken the government. That's what they say. So I assume that's what they want to do with Syria. They want to just make life for the remainder of Syrians who are still fucking in the country, it's not that many, life even worse, in hopes that they rise up and overthrow the Syrian government. It's also intended a larger geopolitical game to weaken an Iranian ally in the Assad government, potentially make life harder for Iranian and Russian and other U.S. adversary forces inside the country, and to a much lesser extent Chinese interest inside Syria, to make it more difficult for those geopolitical adversaries to reap economic and geostrategic military goals in terms of Russia and Iran, to make those goals harder to achieve through these sanctions. It'll weaken the Assad regime and therefore weaken Iranian and Russian influence inside the country. As Mr. Omar did talk about, he wants to punish those countries who are in Syria trying to help the government. I'm not saying those countries like Iran and Russia are doing it out of their kindness of their hearts either. I'm just saying these are what the sanctions are for, not to help everyday Syrians. Let's go on.
لليوم بتمرر وهلا عم نشتغل على التطبيق لأنه هذا قانون عم يحاول يحفظ.
Law is trying to protect the rights of Syrians to avoid reconstruction and try to put pressure on the Syrian regime. What the fuck? What? Is this guy being honest for one? Like, what did he just say?
هذا قانون عم يحاول يحفظ حقوق السوريين.
That's cap. To avoid reconstruction. So the sanctions are made. They don't want Syria to rebuild. These are the sanctions. He's saying the quiet part out loud. This is a rare moment of honesty. He's saying these sanctions are put into place because we don't want Syria to rebuild and reconstruct, at least under the Assad government, which is what's going to happen. So a rare moment of honesty from Mr. Omar.
حاول يضغط على النظام السوري، يحاصره اقتصاديا، حتى النظام السوري ما يقدر يشتري معدات وسلاح جوي.
Becomes unable. Yeah, they always bomb civilians. In the mind of Syrian opposition, media, and soldiers, the U.S. State Department, and EU, every time an Assad bomb, a Syrian army bomb is dropped, it is on civilians. It never hits rebels, ISIS members, terrorists. It never hits militant targets, legal targets and more. It always hits civilians. Always. Like, they genuinely believe this when they say it. It's the worst strategy ever on behalf of the Syrian army. Let's just only hit civilians and not hit any armed adversaries. Jesus Christ.
مهمة. تفاصيله مهمة لكل سوى حتى يعرفها. ما بدنا نخلي النظام السوري يستخدم قانون الاستثمار رقم 10. ما بدنا نخلي النظام.
See, this sounds like it's not a big deal. Like, hey, we're blocking investment in the Syrian regime, quote unquote. I mean, it's just the regime can't get any money. Seems nice. Syrian regime bad. It's not hurting civilians. Well, that's not how it works. The Syrian government is by far the largest employer inside Syria, inside government-held areas. So if you restrict their ability to navigate, if you sanction the Syrian National Bank, which is under control of the government, like every national bank in every country is under control of that fucking country's government, so unique to Syria, it makes life hard. It makes to transfer money through that bank into the pocketbook of Syrians, just normal Syrians, difficult. It restricts this. It makes their life harder. It makes them have less money.
النظام السوري يسرق. ما بدنا نحاسب كل الحرامية اللي عم يشتغلوا بغسيل الأموال، اللي عم يهربوا مخدرات، اللي عم يشتغلوا على الدم الشعب.
Yeah, because the United States has never used drug smuggling. Listen, the Syrian regime, probably to an extent, like every other fucking army, let's face it, in any other war, is involved in some kind of drug smuggling. Whether it's an institutional problem from the very top, from Bashar al-Assad himself, I don't know. There probably is drug smuggling, Captagon, opiates. But what the fuck do you think just this Afghan war that ended like a year ago was? It's a giant drug smuggling operation. I'm not trying to do whataboutism, but sanctioning the Assad government under the guise that they're smuggling drugs. The U.S. sanctioning was the sweetest irony. Like, come on. What do you think the fucking Contras were in Latin America? Let's be real.
السوري هالقانون فيه عقوبات ثنائية، يعني المعاقب رح يتعاقب من جديد إذا لساته عم يدعم النظام، واللي بيتعامل مع المعاقب بيصير معاقب. هاي نقطة بتنفر الدول الأخرى من النظام السوري، وهذا الشيء بيعني قلة الدعم من ناحية الأسلحة، من ناحية النفط، من ناحية الطاقة. نظام ما بيقدر يقصف الشعب لا بإدلب ولا بدير الزور ولا بمناطق سوريا.
I mean, he just basically said, like, yeah, we're not going to allow oil and energy resources to get into Syria. His justification was, well, that will just be used to bomb, again, civilians and the remainder of opposition-held territory, like Idlib and the Daraa. I can't pronounce these cities very well. Like, what? That's just such a nonsense. Like, yeah, some of it will go to military means. The country's at war, of course. But it's not like all of the energy resources are going to the Syrian military. Like, gas is needed for fucking economic means, for just everyday civilians with their energy. People need electricity. Like, what the fuck, Omar? Like, come on, man. And also, like, every time Idlib in the opposition areas where the bombs are falling, it's a hilarious irony because this whole NGO never highlights who is governing Idlib right now, who is the main political organ inside Idlib, who's the main military organ inside Idlib. It's fucking Al-Qaeda. The United States even mentions this. Like, they mentioned it repeatedly. Like, I'll show you for the uninitiated. This is the Emir of the Islamic Emirate of Idlib. That's what it's officially called by the people who control it themselves. Yeah, he looks like a very pro-Western democratic person. If he looks like the caricature of Salafi terrorist, similar to bin Laden, that's because he is. Allegiance, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, Mujahideen, Islamic State of Iraq. He's a fucking ex-ISIS dude. Al-Nusra Front recently present. Rank Emir of Tahrir al-Sham. Tahrir al-Sham is who controls Idlib. It admits it right in this Wikipedia page. So, Mr. Omar is upset that the Assad government is attacking the Islamic Emirate of Idlib, an Al-Qaeda controlled province.
عقوبات قيصر بالبداية رح تركز على الناس الأكثر تأثيرا، على الشركات، الدول الأكثر تأثيرا على النظام السوري. يعني الشركة اللي عم تقدم أكبر دعم للنظام السوري، عم تقدم أسلحة، هادون أولوية غير عنصر أمن أو حدا موجود بدولة أخرى عم يساعد النظام بأمور بسيطة ما بتأثر. إذا وقفنا هاي الأمور ما بتأثر على النظام مثل إذا وقفنا موضوع السلاح. فالمتابعة، المنظمة السوري للطوارئ عم تشتغل بالتنسيق مع الإدارة الأمريكية ومجلس شيوخ
working with the American administration, the American Senate, U.S. Senate. Yes, the United States is behind.
يطبق القانون بشكل قوي وسريع إنه يضغط على النظام السوري ويوقف آلة القتل، وبنفس الوقت القانون موجود ليدعم الشعب السوري اللي أغلبه عايش تحت خط.
How is this aiding Syrians who live under the poverty line right now? He's yet to mention anything about that.
القانون بيعمل حصار على النظام السوري حتى يقطع الإمدادات العسكرية عن النظام السوري، وبهالحالة بوقف القتل.
Yes, it will stop. Like, it will inhibit the Syrian military's ability to, fight, like, in resources coming in. He's not lying about that, but it's doing a lot more. Because one Syrian life is worth 1,000 Syrian regimes. This doesn't make sense. Like, he's abstracting this whole issue as the Syrian government being a separate entity that just rules over all Syrians with an iron fist and doesn't have any public participation. Like, the Syrian government is part of Syria right now. It's part of Syrians' everyday lives. It's the employer for a lot of Syrians.
تسوى 1000 نظام سوري بيرافق تطبيق قانون قيصر إعلان وزارة الخارجية الأمريكية عن
American
الأهداف
Ministry of Foreign Affairs
يلي رح تتم معاقبتها أو الأهداف. وهذه الإعلانات بعد فترة، يعني تطبيق الإعلانات عن العقوبات رح تجي بين الشهر السادس 17 شهر السادس للشهر الثامن. ففي عنا وقت طويل لأي حدا بده يدعم النظام السوري إنه نعاقبه.
Okay, it doesn't really talk about like really any of the logistics behind this, just a lot of vague statements about how it'll help Syrians, but also it won't, how it'll help Syrians living in poverty, but it'll also inhibit energy getting in the country, and all the countries that are trying to help rebuild Syria will be punished. We're going to stop the reconstruction of the country, but also it'll help Syrians. This video has made no sense. It's just been a ton of word salad from Mr. Omar. Just a lot of nonsense. I'll do some more of these reaction videos. This is kind of amateur hour. I've never done something like this, so yeah. Till then, like and subscribe, blah blah blah. This will be on Instagram. Maybe I'll add some things to my TikTok. Take care, all.